Hello friends. To stay updated on new videos, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and support me by liking the content. Wishing you all an engaging listen. Peace be upon you. My name is Salim, I'm 35 years old. Today, I want to share with you a story I experienced years ago with my closest friend. It was both strange and heartbreaking. But before we get into what happened, let me tell you a little about who we were and the life we lived back then. My only real friend was Emra. We met as children in an orphanage, and from the very first day, we became inseparable, more like brothers than friends. We grew up side by side, even shared the same bed at times, and made a promise that no matter what, we would always be together. We went through everything together, even our military service. Since neither of us had anyone else, our bond became stronger than family. We never fought, never raised our voices, never disrespected one another. And yet, life has a cruel way of forcing you to face the very thing you fear most, and I was no exception. We lived in Istanbul, working different jobs, saving money to build a better future. We had no unnecessary expenses, just dreams, buying cars and hopefully finding the right women to share our lives with. One evening, I left work late. No buses were running, so I started walking home. That's when I heard strange voices ahead. At first, it sounded like a heated argument, and I thought it best to avoid it. But then, through the shouting, I heard a woman's cry. I couldn't ignore it. As I got closer, I saw a group of young thugs, maybe 19 or 20 years old, harassing an elderly woman and trying to steal her bag. I rushed over, pulled them away, and after a brief moment of resistance, they realized I was stronger and fled. The woman was shaken, her belongings scattered on the ground. I helped her up, gathered her things, and asked her name. She said it was Adile. She looked frail, exhausted, and carried the weight of her years heavily. I offered to walk her home. She seemed surprised, maybe because genuine kindness was something she rarely saw. Her house wasn't far, just a small but livable old building. At the door, she thanked me, then said, "Come in, I want to show you something." Inside, she disappeared into another room and soon returned. She placed something cold in my hand. When I opened my palm, I saw a black stone. I frowned and asked what it was. She told me it was a wish stone. I couldn't help but chuckle. But then she grabbed my wrist firmly and said, "Whatever you wish for, this stone will give. But every wish has a price." Skeptical, I told her I didn't believe in such things, but to avoid offending her, I thanked her for the gift and headed toward the door. Before leaving, curiosity made me ask, "If this stone is real, why haven't you used it? Why not wish for youth, or wealth?" She sighed and said, "Because every wish demands something in return. Be careful with what you ask for." I walked away, the stone clenched in my hand, tucked into my pocket. Yet I couldn't stop thinking about it. It felt as though it was whispering, trying to invade my thoughts. Under a dim street lamp, I pulled it out and stared. To my shock, in the middle of the darkness, the stone was glowing, shining brightly as if it were alive. This was no ordinary stone, that much was obvious, but I still couldn't quite believe it had the power to grant wishes. As I turned it over in my hand, a cold wind brushed past, the kind that seeps into your bones and makes your teeth chatter. I shoved the stone into my pocket and kept walking. When I got home and saw Emra, the thought of the stone completely slipped my mind. We ate, we talked about the day, then retreated to our rooms to sleep. While taking off my trousers, the stone slipped from my pocket and clattered to the floor. I picked it up again and stared at it on my palm. What harm could one more try do? I thought. I whispered, "I wish I could be the most respected, most admired worker at my job." The stone flashed just for an instant, but it was real and I saw it. I tucked it under my pillow and slept. The next morning, when I walked into the office, everyone was clapping. People looked at me with a mixture of admiration and awe. "Why are you all staring?" I asked, confused. A colleague came over and said, "Your last project? It's the one we talk about. The boss chose you as the hardest working, most determined employee. Teach us your method." Their words felt strange, flattering, yes, but unnerving because none of the others had ever received this treatment. As the day went on, it became clear, I was suddenly the center of praise. Even the boss held me up as an example. The stone had worked. All day I waited to call Emre and tell him, but I couldn't reach him. I assumed he was busy, so I walked home with a grin. Halfway there my phone rang from an unknown number. Static on the line, I couldn't make out a single word, so I hung up. Then someone called my name behind me. I turned, but there was no one. Strange things, I thought, and kept moving. When I reached home, Emre was already there earlier than usual. I was bursting to tell him about the stone, but then I noticed his hand wrapped in bandages. "Emre, what happened? Why's your hand like that?" I asked. He explained, voice small, that he'd had a nasty accident at work, slipped, fell, and something heavy had crushed his arm. 2 fingers were broken. Hearing that made my chest tighten. He was in pain. He barely ate. He went straight to his room and shut the door. I tried not to press him. He seemed embarrassed, upset in a way I'd never seen. That night, I took the stone from under my pillow. I didn't want my friend to hurt. I wished, simply, may Emre's arm heal and his spirit lift. The stone pulsed again. I put it back under my pillow and slept with an anxious hope. Next morning, music drifted from the kitchen. I walked in and found Emre dancing as he cooked, the bandages tossed aside. He laughed and said, "It's a miracle my fingers are fine. No pain at all." I felt a rush of relief so strong it made me dizzy. We had breakfast and left the apartment lighter than air. I felt invincible. Everything I asked for seemed to happen. That night, thinking of both our longings, I decided on a new wish, for both of us to find the love of our lives. I fell asleep with that thought spinning in me. On the way home that evening, I sensed someone behind me. I turned and, for the first time, saw a man I'd never forget, tall, wrapped in black from head to toe, a broad hat shadowing his face. He moved fast, hands in his pockets, and passed me without slowing. I shivered as he walked by, and the world around him blurred as if he had sliced through reality. I started again but heard footsteps anew, and when I looked back, he was there, standing unnervingly close. This time, as he moved past, he turned his head and fixed me with a stare that felt like a grasp on my soul. I couldn't see his face, but I felt him whisper something I could not quite hear. Then he vanished into the night like a hole in the scene. The street, which should have been full of people, lay empty and echoing. I hurried home. Inside, Emre sat in the living room staring at the TV. The set was off, but his eyes were fixed on it as if it held a moving picture only he could see. He didn't respond when I greeted him. His pupils were bright red. I put a hand on his shoulder. "Are you okay? Talk to me." He didn't say anything. He went to his room and shut the door. Something about him was wrong. I fetched the stone and held it, thinking only of his happiness. "Let Emre be well, truly well," I begged. Later, preparing dinner, I kept knocking on his door. He didn't answer. When I finally sat down to eat, a faint clicking noise began in the room. It took me a moment to pin it to the TV. The set was off, but the sound grew, a dry, mechanical ticking as if something tiny was moving inside it. I stepped closer, and in the glass of the dark screen I saw my reflection, and behind me, Emre smiling in a way I had never seen. I spun around. He stood there grinning, but the grin was wrong, stretched. He greeted me in a sing-song voice, "You okay, brother? Want to eat?" He ate like a man possessed, plunging his hands into the food, shoveling it into his mouth with crude, animal movements. He wasn't the Emra I knew. I told him to stop, that he was hurting himself, to please speak. He lifted his head and looked at me, and his red-rimmed eyes narrowed. Then he said, plainly, the words that froze my blood, "You did this. You wished for it? You wanted it?" I felt a cold wind rush through me. The man in black, the stones flashing, the sudden favors and the secret prices, they collided into a terrible, impossible realization. Whatever power I had held came with a balance, and someone or something was keeping the ledger. Emra's voice wasn't only accusing, there was a knowledge in it, a certainty that I had crossed a line. I didn't mean I started, but he cut me off. His face was calm now, too calm. "You asked." Someone answered. He smiled again, but this time the smile was not for me. This time I held nothing back. "Listen, brother, you're wrong. I didn't do anything to you," I told him, but he wouldn't listen. In a sudden rage he swept the table clear, plates clattered and shattered across the floor. He grabbed one of the broken pieces and began cutting his face with it. I lunged forward and grabbed his wrist, but he was shockingly strong, stronger than I ever imagined. In one brutal motion he threw me against the wall. He kept cutting, not only his face but his arms and chest, until he was soaked in blood. I realized I couldn't stop him. I fumbled for my phone to call an ambulance, but my hands trembled so badly I couldn't dial. It was as if something invisible stopped my fingers every time I tried. Panicked, I ran to the kitchen and everything looked normal, as if nothing had happened. The food was still on the table. Emra was nowhere to be seen. My head spun. Had I imagined it all? Then I heard his voice behind me. He stood there in his underwear, as if he had just come in. For a moment I couldn't speak. "Where did you come from?" I asked. "I just got off work. It was busy today, I'm late," he said. He told me he'd tried calling but never got through. Lately he said he could never reach me, the phone was always busy or unanswered. We sat and ate, but my mind was somewhere else. He spoke about his day while I tried to force myself to listen. When I touched his shoulder and asked if he was okay, he gave me a tired smile and said he was just worn out. I lied and said I'd tell him later. That night I went to my room and cried until I could hardly breathe. I read prayers online and finally fell asleep. In the morning the stone was back in my palm. I couldn't remember taking it. That day I had only one wish, that my friendship with Emra stay untouched, that we never be torn apart. No sooner had I thought it than the stone flashed. I left it on the pillow and went out. At the door Emra stopped me. "You were going to tell me something last night," he said. I hesitated. A voice inside me urged silence. I had never lied to him before, but something told me not to say anything. I shrugged it off and left for work. Later, my unease wouldn't let me rest. I stayed home that day, my stomach turned at every bite. I lay down and tried to sleep, but when I woke it was dark. Emra returned, furious. He slammed around the house, and when I tried to calm him, he exploded. He grabbed me by the throat and hissed that it was my fault, my wishes, my desires ruined his life. He said he would take his pain out on me. I struggled, but he was overpowering. I woke up choking, it had been a nightmare. Shaken, I dressed and went to the woman's house, the one who gave me the stone. I banged on her door. When she opened, I burst in, "That stone is destroying my life. You said it grants wishes, but you never warned me about this cost. I wanted my friend to heal and be happy, but now he flips from day to night. I want my old life back." Adil listened without interrupting. Finally she spoke, "I cannot reverse this. I told you every wish has a price. If you keep holding on to him, both your lives will be ruined. The only way to break the curse is to separate yourselves. You must distance yourself forever. He will not remember you. You will both live apart, unaware of the other, but safe and whole. Her words hit me like a blow. Do you understand what you're saying? He is the only family I have. If we separate, we'll be miserable forever, I pleaded. She shook her head. This is the only way. He will forget you, he will not recall what you shared. Your life will be erased from his memory. I could not accept it. The idea of losing Emra from his life and from mine felt like letting everything that mattered be erased. Yet the woman's voice was steady and certain, and the stone in my pocket seemed heavier than before. He would remember every moment of his life except me. Even if he saw me, he would no longer recognize me. That thought alone was unbearable. Isn't there another way? I begged. But she shook her head. No. And there is something else you must know, she said. She explained that the stone had two masters. Whenever I made a wish, they fulfilled it instantly, but in return they demanded a price. My price had been Emra. No matter how much I pleaded, nothing changed. I left her house clutching the stone, my heart heavy with despair. For the first time in my life, I prayed not to see Emra again. I sat alone on a park bench, scrolling through old photos and videos of us. Every memory tore deeper into me, knowing we would never laugh like that again, never embrace again. Still, I decided I had to say goodbye one last time. That evening, when Emra came home, I hugged him tightly and whispered, "I'm sorry. I made a mistake. And it will destroy us." He said nothing, just stared. I told him everything, the stone, the wishes, all of it. When I finally looked up, his eyes had turned pitch black. Veins bulged across his face, his teeth sharpened into points. In a deep, terrifying voice he said, "We granted your wish. In return, we took your friend's soul. Now it's your turn. Give him to us, or both of you will burn forever." I shouted that I wanted all my wishes undone, that I wanted Emra with me. But the voice only laughed. "Impossible. He belongs to us now." With that, the figure vanished. At once, dreadful sounds filled the house, whispers, growls, screams that shook my soul. Shadows with monstrous faces darted in and out of the corners. Then I heard Emra's voice crying out, "Help me. Please, save me." I realized the stone was my only chance. Pulling it from my pocket, I saw it glowing brighter than ever before. I knew this was the moment of my final wish. The house shook violently, walls cracking, the floor quaking beneath me. I wished to be separated from my friend forever, and for everything to return to normal. I screamed. The roar grew louder, then darkness consumed me. When I woke, morning light filled the room. The house was wrecked, dust everywhere, but none of it mattered. I rushed to Emra's room. His bed was empty. My knees gave out as tears streamed down my face. But then a voice behind me said, "What are you doing in my room this early?" I turned. Emra stood there, wrapped in a towel, smiling like always. Trembling, I touched him. He was real. Alive. I clung to him and whispered, "I thought I lost you." He laughed. "Lost me? I'm right here. Come on, let's get ready. It's the weekend. Let's go out and clear our heads." The stone was gone. The curse was over. A few days later, I returned to the old woman's house. But it had burned to the ground. A neighbor told me the woman had died in the fire. He called her a witch, said she had ruined many lives with her cursed stones. Some claimed they had seen dark figures around her house at night. She had been both feared and hated. And now, she was gone. I stood in silence, realizing how close I had come to losing everything. If I had made that last wish one day earlier, Emra would have been lost forever. Instead, God showed me mercy. The stone was gone, and my brother was still with me. Years have passed since then. Emra and I built our lives, bought our homes and cars, and found the people we love. But we did it with our own hands, through patience and effort. That is the lesson I want to leave with you: nothing easy is everlasting. If you truly want something, ask it from God first. Then work for it. Be patient. And believe me, everything will fall into place as it should. Thank you for listening, my friends. I love you all. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next story. Until then, take care and stay safe.